Wow, so how did I get here? That was definitely what I was thinking when I got asked to step on this stage and talk to you all about my professional journey in accessibility services and my passion for working with students with disabilities. For me, I feel like I need to give you a disclaimer before I start. I'm not an individual who identifies as having a disability. I don't have any close family members. I'm not a mother of a child with a disability. And so for me, that path might not have seemed natural. If you would actually talk to my high school self or even my college self, I probably wouldn't have even known what accessibility services was. And I definitely would have been surprised by that path. But one of the, like Tamara said, I love my job, and I hope that that's why I'm here today talking with you, is that I convey that in the interactions that I have on campus and with my colleagues, my faculty and staff, and even with my students. And why I've gone down the path of accessibility services is because I think accessibility services is such a dynamic field. It's a field in transition. What we see today as a result of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and the ADA and Section 504, which aren't that old, they're only around 25 years old, is that we have more and more students on our campuses that identify as having a disability, and that means we have more diverse learning environments on our college campuses. The other thing that's exciting about accessibility services is that, and accessibility in general, is, like I said, we're a field in transition. We're still trying to figure out our language. We used to use a medical model of disability, right? Identifying something that was wrong with that student and trying to fix it. And we've definitely started to move towards more of a social construction of disability, seeing disability as the barriers that limit our students' access in their learning environments. And what I'm going to talk about and focus on today, and hopefully send you home with, and what's the most exciting thing is, I think access is transformational. And I've gotten to that point in just my experiences with my students. So I want you to think for a moment about access is transformational. We don't really often think about access. We kind of overlook access altogether, right? Until we are denied access. Okay? Once we're denied access, then we realize that access might be an important concept, okay? So I want you to think for a moment about a time when you were denied access, okay? I had a moment a couple days ago. This is my annual time to sign my 9-year-old up for summer camps, okay? And I went on the website, I found the swimming lessons that he needs to take at the specific time the babysitter can take him to those swimming lessons, right? And I was going through the whole process, and then I got to the dreaded website screen that asks for my username and password. It's the same username and password I use annually. I only use it once a year to sign up for swimming lessons, right? And so I knew it was going to be a problem, because every year I can't remember it. I tried one username, I tried another password. The system wasn't telling me what was wrong, so I wasn't sure if it was the username or the password. Right? In that moment, I was frustrated. That's how we feel, right? We feel annoyed, we feel angry. The actual act when I was able to get into that system, it took me about 2 minutes to sign up for the swim lessons and pay for them. It took me about 10 to 15 minutes to access the system to do that task. Really frustrating. I almost just threw in the towel and said, just forget it, I'll call tomorrow and see if they can do it over the phone. Access is transformational. And like I said, it's something that we don't think about. So I thought to help you kind of get a sense of where my passion developed from working with the students that I get to work with. They're amazing students that I work with here at MSU Denver in Accessibility Services. And as I was thinking about the situations or the experiences I should share, interestingly, they tended to follow along my own professional career. I started in grad school as a school psychologist, moved into counseling psychology, worked at a program for students with disabilities, learning disabilities, and then ended up here at MSU Denver in a field that was kind of new to me. So I'm going to talk first about my very first practicum experience, okay? Imagine 4 weeks into my practicum experience in school psychology. I'm assigned to a middle school in rural Iowa, and I didn't know at the time what an amazing school that would be, okay? This is a school that had a full range of special education services. When I took the tour, I saw students in the general ed setting receiving their special ed instruction right there. We moved down the line, and I saw some students getting pulled out in resource rooms. Saw some students in some self-contained classrooms. And the final place we ended in the tour was a classroom for students with severe and profound disabilities. Now, these are students who all use mobility devices. They're all in wheelchairs. They were actually all assisted by a nurse or a caregiver, a teacher. Many of them use feeding tubes. And so all the tasks that they're being assisted with are basic life skills. I was totally overwhelmed, totally intimidated. This is not what I signed up for as a school psychologist, right? So I go back a couple months because I have to observe a student working on their goals for special education. And his goal was to indicate yes or no on a mat. Now, previous to coming to the classroom, I was thinking, is this even education? I mean, it seems like we're just taking care of students with kind of significant disabilities, but I don't know if we're really teaching anything. But it wasn't until watching him work on that skill, right? And actually contemplating what his life is going to be like, right? All of the students in this class, many of them are nonverbal. So for him to be able to indicate a yes or a no is going to make a huge difference in his access when it comes to life, right? It's going to be transformational. He will always rely on caregivers, and for him, having a means of communication is his one step into being able to self-advocate for himself. Totally transformational. My second experience has to do with my internship. I did a pre-doctoral internship at a university counseling center. I was leading a process-oriented group. A student had come presented with depression, identified that he had Asperger's, he was on the spectrum, and part of what he had difficulties with is connecting with other people socially. And so we added him to the group. I felt he would be a good fit because he needs to practice his social skills. That was my belief. He needs to practice the social skills. He needs to have a chance to interact with folks, get feedback. Well, the group didn't function as I thought they would. I had hoped they would kind of give him that feedback. And what they ended up doing is kind of replicating his experience that he had outside of the group, which was to, people tried to politely redirect back to the conversation at hand, and ultimately we're kind of ignoring him. About 8 weeks into the group, we have another member, so we had Mike, right, my student with Asperger's. We have another member, John, join the group. John observes, he's in the group to work on some dominating behaviors. He tends to not have good relationships. He enters the group, and the next week he comes back, and he turns to my co-leader and myself, and he says, do you know what? Mike over here seems to have some really big problems. And I think that maybe it might be in Mike's best interest, and the group's, if you would ask him to leave the group. Okay, so I'm already wondering what the group is going to do because they've been kind of ignoring Mike up until that point. But they actually surprised me. What they did in that moment was they rallied behind Mike. Hey, Mike's been in this group for 8 weeks. You've been in it for 2 weeks. Mike's a part of this group. Yeah, he's annoying at times, but Mike's problems, they're not any bigger than any of our problems, right? What John didn't realize is we all have a fear that maybe someday someone will realize something about us, right? That will result in them rejecting us, denying us access to that group, to that situation. And that was a transformational moment for that group, right? Mike had the experience of actually having friends in the group, and that's what we were going for. My final experience has to do with my work as an academic counselor at the Services for Students with Learning Disabilities. And I was working with a student named Seth. Seth is a great, bright young man, has a learning disability that impacts him when it comes to reading and writing. And it was a different appointment than we usually had. He had actually come in to show me a paper he had written. He was super excited. He said it was such a great assignment. The professor asked us all to write a narrative about our relationship with reading and writing. So you have a student with a learning disability being asked to talk about that experience. And yeah, he talked a little bit about the struggles, but most of what he focused on was his experience of having words of support and encouragement, and some of the tools that he had found and the ways that he had kind of gotten around that barrier. And what he talked about was in the paper, he talked about going to school and struggling through every academic task, and then coming home at the end of his day and sitting down with his parent or a tutor, and again, going through all of the academic work he needed to get done, right? And he would look out the window and see all the kids in the neighborhood playing and think, gosh, that's never going to be me, right? Kind of denied that access. And what he talked about in that paper was how transformational it was for him to be able to use adaptive technology. We had a discussion in our office, is technology transformational? And I immediately thought of Seth, because it was transformational for him. Once he had the access to technology, something that is as simple as text-to-speech, to be able to read content to him, he no longer had to struggle through that. He could actually work independently on his academic tasks and get it done with some level of efficiency, autonomy, self-efficacy, right? So for him, it was transformational. He wasn't stuck in that inside that room looking out the window. He was playing outside. And that's important. Access is totally transformational. And that's why I can't imagine why people wouldn't have the same passion I have for what I do. I know that many of you, actually I should give you a little update on Seth, because I actually did connect with him this week. Unlike the two students in my previous stories, I lost track of them, right? But Seth did graduate from a selective private university. He was an amazing student, studied abroad during his time. And when graduation rolled around, he had a job already lined up in microfinance. And what he shared with me this week was, I was actually the top producer on my team at work. And so it was really exciting. And so he was like, I'm so excited that you're going to be sharing my story, because it was transformational. And for him, it was the learning differences that he had that really impacted his success. So I know that you might not all work with students in the same way that I've had an opportunity to do. I wish you could, because they are amazing. But I do want to leave you with that little tiny idea. Access is transformational. Because access is an important element to the success of the work we do with students. Accesses and access issues are not unique to individuals with disabilities. The students we interact with every day are going to have apparent and non-apparent barriers that they experience that keep them from accessing their learning environments. They may have issues getting to campus, right, because of transportation. Just like my student in the first story, physical access issue, right? They may be like Mike, who had issues related to, or access issues related to kind of psychological or social access, being able to connect with others. We all have those students, we wonder why they don't come in our office. Why are they not as connected with their peers? Why are they not connected with programs? And finally, we might have students that just don't have the access to the resources they need to be successful. So again, remember that access is transformational. And then when access is there, it does lead to inclusive learning environments and greater diversity in our classrooms. And it can have a huge impact, even if we take it for granted. So, thank you.